You can't run away from yourself. You just can't. And life will conspire to give you the exact same circumstances with different people until you learn whatever lesson it is, or you're willing to go in and see what your role is in creating these circumstances so you can recreate them.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Tea. I am your host, Tanya Tyler, and I'm excited because I'm going to be talking to Miss Heather Markel, and she is a full-time travel coach. I was like, I love her job already, but before we get into that, I want to turn over to Miss Heather and welcome you to the show, my friend. Thank you for hopping.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I always want to give people, like our audience, a little bit of the background about how I met you. And I want to say I've been networking with amazing people, and I want to give a quick shout out to Dr. Chris Belfry. He connected us, and he thought we would be a great connect. And I have to say, I love your story. So when you told me what you do, I was like, oh, you have got to be a guest. So without further ado, Miss Heather, I'd like to turn it over to you. Please tell a little bit about who you are and, how did this gig of yours become a reality?
Yep.
Full-time travel is amazing. So
yes,
welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah. So today I am a full-time travel coach and also going into my 6th year of full-time travel. So I've been to 33 countries on 6 continents since I quit my job in 2017. Before all this, I worked 25 plus years in corporate and I was in sales, marketing, customer service in the telecom industry. And at the beginning, I loved my career because I was traveling everywhere, I was using my language skills, and then mergers, acquisitions, and boom, I end up in a domestic company where my language skills are no longer of value, and I can't seem to move up. I can make lateral moves, but I can't go up. And the more I am in the company, the more I'm not sure I want to go up because, and so I'm wondering, like, what am I doing here? And I started feeling like I was sort of rotting at my desk, waiting for retirement with, one body ailment, another, sitting all the time. I'm wasting away whatever skill set I was born with. Like it just seemed like a giant waste. And so for about the last 10 years of my career, I thought, I got to do something else. I'm going to quit. In January, I said I would quit. December, I hadn't quit. I got certified as a professional coach in 2008. And I began my coaching business, which at the time I did expat coaching and then went into business coaching. And I started out earning myself in my business coaching over my corporate salary. So I'm like, well, that's weird. And eventually I looked in all of these different directions to find satisfaction, and I ended up just overworking. I had my day job and my after day job, and I burnt out, and I eventually felt a pain in my chest in January of 2017. And I knew from a prior experience that emotional pain becomes a physical ailment. And I didn't want to turn that chest pain into something worse. So that was the year I finally said, this is my year, I'm quitting. And I spent the year stepping up to the plate. I gave myself some challenges. I went through with them, finally quit. And in January 2018, began my travels in Costa Rica. And at the time, I really thought I was going for 3 to 6 months. I was just going to clear my head and then come back to real life and get another job. And then about 6 months in, when my apartment was, which I had kept, was due for lease renewal, I thought, why am I going back to real life? Like, I'm really enjoying myself. And it's a heck of a lot cheaper than I thought that I understood. So I ended up not renewing the lease, put stuff in storage, then thinking it was for a year, which is why I put stuff in storage. And again, now I'm going into year 6. And And along the way, I realized, as you know, I got marooned in New Zealand for the pandemic, and I feel really lucky about that. But I realized everyone else was waking up to the same thoughts I was, wanting more meaning, wanting more purpose. And here I was, like, I've done it, like, and I can teach this. So that's when I started building actually some of the programs that I offer now, and planning out actually what is now my full-time travel coaching business.
Right. I like I said, I was fascinated with your story, and you've already dropped a couple of gems, but I want to like take a little deeper look at some of the
Yeah.
things that you brought up. And first of all, I want to clarify, can you clarify when you talk about full-time travel coach, you're not talking about riding around cross country in those little minivans, right?
Well, some people do that. I travel internationally, but there are plenty of people that get an RV and travel domestically in their own country. So you can do full-time travel any way you want.
But you don't do, that's not when you
That's
talk
not
about
what I do. No.
that's why I
Uh-uh.
want to clarify.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, so
I'm
you can
staying in,
travel.
I'm staying in like hostels, hotels, Airbnbs, with friends. I do house sitting. I do a blend of things.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of things, and I wanted, people have different views of what full-time travel coach may be. I
Yeah.
just wanted to clarify what that might look for you.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
So, when you're talked about, first of all, it's like your awareness of your body, right? You talked about the pain in your body was indicating that there's needed to be a change. What would you advise somebody who's thinking about maybe travel? They've had a love for travel, but they're afraid to take that step. What would be something like you would say? This is a sign for you to start thinking you need to seriously look at what you want to do. Is there
Yeah.
something that would be a red flag to them, or say an indication that this might be for you?
So it's a great question. And actually, with my clients, mindset is the first place that I start, because this is so important. And I think I will say full-time travel is not for someone who's running away. It is for someone who's running towards. And I say that because especially for me, the first year of travel was full of like epiphanies and confronting myself. You can't run away from yourself. You just can't. And life will conspire to give you the exact same circumstances with different people until you learn whatever lesson it is, or you're willing to go in and see what your role is in creating these circumstances so you can recreate them. So I would say, if you're feeling if you're feeling like, I hate where I am and I just want to get away, and this sounds, maybe not. But if you are feeling like, I'm called to travel, I want to do it more, but I'm afraid of, how would I afford it? How would my future look? Am I going to be bankrupt in retirement if I do that? If you're just having concerns, then I would say every question, like whenever I had anxiety about doing this, I realized one day, all of my anxieties are just questions I don't have the answer to.
Oh, I love
So,
that.
make questions out of your fears, and then you can actually answer them.
Right. I love that. It's like, okay, so you're getting curious about, what your future might look like, or something like that. And like I said, don't run away from your life. You're actually running towards your life because this is something that you feel compelled to do. So is this what
Yes.
I'm hearing?
Yes, exactly.
And so, with that being said, it's like when you started to take the steps to say, we've heard these quiet quitting and all that stuff. What were your steps, or when you're planning? Because it sounds like it took you about a year to actually to get the full nerve to go. So,
Yes.
what would your advice be? Your second advice be to those who are already said, my mindset is ready to go. I'm ready to step out. What would be your tips to planning this? Planning your I guess exit strategy if you
Exit.
want for
Yeah.
your.
It was funny because I for me, I ended up, like I said, I stepped up to a couple of challenges. The third and final one was telling my mother, which was honestly the hardest of all. And I got her drunk, and it went really well until after she sobered up, and then I got like weeks of reasons I shouldn't quit. But by that time, I was ready, and so everything she threw at me, I was like, "Oh, thanks. Yep, I had that fear too, but nope, I'm good, So I'd say really your exit strategy is, if you really are ready and you've confronted your fears, figure out who you want to be and how you want to be remembered. And, I think not burning bridges is a great thing. So, talk to your manager, tell them what you want to do, and, say like how I'm willing to stay and make sure that there's a good transition. So if you need me more than 2 weeks, that would be nice, right? To offer, like if you need me to be here for a month or something, I'm happy to do that. I want to make sure that the business, succeeds, but I need to step out. So because you never know, right? You might decide, oh, well, maybe at full-time travel isn't as much fun, or I'm done. Who knows? And then you want your job back. So why not create the circumstances where you have a great leaving, that also paves the way for you to be in connection and then come back if you wanted to, or get referrals. You might one day want to get another job, and your old boss and colleagues could be a great pool of people to refer you.
Right. I love it. Again, I want to remind everybody that Heather has been dropping some gems. So if you've been picking them up, please give us a like, follow up with some comments down below, because we're going to start diving a little bit more into, how do you know if this is, like I said, a calling or just something that's like on a whim? How did you know that full-time travel was for you? How did you know that?
I didn't actually. So I remember I set out thinking it was for 3 or 6 months at first. And so I can tell you from experience what happened to me is the 2 week mark, the end of that is very crucial. As someone coming from corporate, I always took 1 or 2 week vacations. So when I got to the end of 2 weeks, that's when it hit me. Oh my God, I'm not going back to work. What am I doing with myself? And also, it was the moment where everything came together and almost fell apart in that I had pre-planned, because when you're on vacation, you got to pre-plan everything. I had all the buses, all the hotels, all the activities pre-booked. And I stopped myself at that 2 week mark before I left, because I said, wait, I'm supposed to experience go with the flow travel. How am I doing that if I book everything? Well, everything worked out. So I was in Corcovado National Park in the middle of nowhere, at the end of 2 weeks. And it was my last night of pre-booked accommodation. The Wi-Fi was awful. The manager of the property was even worse. And it took me like hours of research to figure out that I couldn't go where I wanted to. I was trying to meet up with some people and I wasn't going to be able to do it. I had a meltdown, and I decided, if I can't figure out how to reach these two friends, I can't do this. And I actually thought about giving up, packing my bags, going back to New York and asking for my job back, until the wise voice in my head was like, Heather, instead of trying so hard to get where you can't, why don't you just figure out where you can go? And I was like, oh my God, it's so wise. And then once I had that epiphany, it changed the game and I was all in. That's when I knew full-time travel was for me. And just the reconnection with the ability, like I did as a teenager living with a host family in France, to discover a culture, to live in a place, to meet locals, to not be obsessed with going to the tourist sites, and instead getting to just see the landscape, be bored, sit in a cafe, watch people go by. Like, that's to me the excitement of traveling full time. And I was just hooked.
Right. I love it. Like I said, it sounds like you're breaking away from the mindset of what you think was traditional living,
Yep.
and you're creating the living that you've always wanted to create, and discover what that means for you. Is that
Yes.
what I'm hearing?
Yes, that's right.
And so when people are like looking at what was the biggest, I guess, your biggest lesson, or the thing you want people to take away when they're thinking about making the transition to traveling full time? What's something that you've learned that you think people would love to learn, or maybe you wish you had known before you started?
Well, one thing is, it is radically less expensive to travel full time than to live a fixed life in one place. And just that knowledge, I wish I knew that years before, because then I wouldn't have stewed for so long in fear about not having enough money. That's number one. And number two, if your heart calls you to do this, whether it be the full time travel or something else, but especially travel, do it. I can't tell you, like, I put it off for a long time. I finally did it. The pandemic happens, and I'm thinking at that point, I may never be able to travel again. I don't know. Thank God I quit when I did, because I might not have ever had that chance. Over the summer, ironically, I was planning to go to Turkey. I ended up not getting there. And now we know there was a huge earthquake. So really, when you want to do something, I'm reminded all the time, go for it, just do it, because you just don't know. None of us knows, especially with travel, and especially with the world as it is today, what things are going to be like. Prices have gone up. The world is a different place, and it's going to continuously evolve. There's climate change. Go for it. Do
Right.
it, because I have 80,000 photos in my phone. So when I am down, I get to look back and be reminded of having the courage to follow my heart and try whatever happens. Like that I get to keep. And I think that's worth infinitely more than $1 million that I might have left on the table because I left my job.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's amazing, I think we sort of hinted to it when I asked you on the last. But what's the one thing you want people to take away from your interview today? That there's nothing else that they hear from you. What's one thing you want to leave them with?
Um, I think again, it's just, if you have a calling, listen to it. If you have a pain in your body, listen, what's the emotion behind it? Challenge it, step into it. And yes, like that you have the permission to actually live the life that you want. You don't have to get stuck in this life that someone else, or I don't know, we have these ideas, I don't know who told us we had to live this way. You can live life your way. That's what I would say would be a takeaway that I would want your audience to have.
Oh, it's beautiful. And where can people find more information about you, your services, or how they can find your services to learn more about your coaching?
Yeah, sure. So the easiest is probably to go to fromdesk2destiny.com, which will take you to a page on my site where you can book a free full-time travel chat call with me. And you can also access my blog and other information on my website, my programs. And yeah, I would love to chat to you if you are someone listening that's like, yes, I want to do this, but I don't know where to get started or how to afford it. Book a call with me. It's free and we can make it happen.
Oh, I love it. And Miss Heather, where do you know where you're going to next, or would you like to give us a sneak peek as to where you're headed
Well,
next?
I'm like in the middle of booking it, and I was like all set to go to Bali in Indonesia, and then using my airline miles, and there was like a little hiccup, so I may end up just going to like Mexico or Belize. So it's between those two, and I will be likely in Africa later this year, and also Europe.
Well, I definitely want to say wish you the best and safe of travels and stuff like that. Please stay
Thank
connected.
you.
We'd love to have a follow up. Maybe we can. Would you be willing to come back and have a deeper conversation?
Yes, anytime. I'd love it.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank you so much for your time and your insight, sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
A great conversation. And like I said, I love her story. I'm like living through her, whether she knows it or not, but I'm living my dream through you. And I want to remind everybody that yes, we make sure that feedback is always welcome. That links that Heather mentioned will be posted down in the description box below. So please make sure you check out those gems down there below. If you enjoyed what Heather shared today, if you want to continue getting more of the great insight that she shared, hit the like button and that subscribe button while you're over there. So please make sure you get those notifications. And again, make sure you take things in stride, go with the flow, and create your own path. And we will see you back here on another episode of Coffee with Tea. All right. Bye-bye.